Wait, this isn't Cobra Kai. Alright, I'm probably going to mispronounce all these names, but I'm going to give it a go. Zolo Maradona, Bruno Marquez, George Lopez, Belissa Escobedo, and Adriana Barraza, and multiple others star in Blue Beetle, as Jaime Reyes suddenly finds himself in possession of an ancient relic of alien biotechnology called the Scarab. When the Scarab chooses Jamie to be its symbiotic host, he's bestowed with an incredible suit of armor that's capable of extraordinary and unpredictable powers, forever changing his destiny as he becomes the superhero Blue Beetle. Let me first get it out of the way by saying that I had absolutely no expectations going into this movie. I'm not saying that I've avoided the trailer or I just didn't know what to expect. I just thought that this was going to be another generic superhero movie that we've seen 100 times over by this point, and that it was going to be fine. I didn't even want to go see it, and then the Rotten Tomatoes reviews started coming in, and I'm like, I mean, it's at 79%, and the audience score is really high, so maybe there's something to it. Maybe I can believe that there's something here possibly, unlike the last 3 or 4 years of superhero movies outside of a select few. And I'm happy to report that I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. It is pretty standard for what you'd expect out of a comic book movie in this day and age, but it still has some originality to it, and I think that if James Gunn is to incorporate it into his new DC cinematic universe, that would be a really smart decision, because I really think that they got something here. And if James Gunn got his hands on a movie like this and the characters that were set up in this, I think that he would do an absolutely amazing job with it. I think that he might have had his touch on this movie. So let's get into the good. First, starting off, the family dynamic in this movie works for the most part. There's a few characters that I'll get into later that I didn't necessarily like as much, but the three standouts really were Nana, Rudy, and Jamie. And Nana, she makes this movie. She is absolutely amazing in it. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but what they do with her character and how they set her up, because they don't just want to make all of these cheap cop outs, like all these people are just able to do this certain thing for one reason, and no, they give her a backstory. They give her a reason, like why she's able to fight and why she's like actually a part of this movie, and it works, and it's great, and it's funny, and it's fun, and that's the biggest thing about this movie. It's just fun. The most fun character in this movie by far is Rudy. Rudy is absolutely hilarious in this movie. George Lopez delivered an absolutely amazing performance. And then, like I said in the opening of this video, this isn't Cobra Kai, because Miguel Zolo is really good in this movie. He's the heart and soul of Cobra Kai. That's what I know him from, and he's the heart and soul of this movie, and he's really good in it. There's not too much character growth, which again I'll get into it later, but he starts off wanting to help his family, and by the end of it I think that he got his family in a position where they can succeed. And it's just a really compelling story of wrong place, wrong time, kid has to try and figure it out, which again is pretty generic for superhero movies, but it works. It's just fun. The action was also shot really well, and considering this is DC, they've been known to have some pretty effects. This is probably the best looking DC movie that I've seen, because the effects really just work, and the executives at Max and Warner Brothers made the right decision in saying, no, this doesn't need to just go straight to streaming. This deserves a theatrical release. And while I was there on a Friday at 5, the theater was nearly empty, which isn't a good sign, because movies like this deserve to be supported. Not as much as movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like I said last week. Another really good movie that I think people should support, and I think that they are supporting it really well, is Talk to Me, because that was a good movie. I didn't review it, but I had a very good time with that as well. Getting into some neutrals about this movie now. Jenny Cord in this movie is alright. She works as a love interest. She did a alright job. Nothing, I mean, she wasn't great, but she also wasn't bad in it. That's really all that there is for the neutrals. So let's move on to the negatives about this movie. I would say my biggest gripe with this movie was his sister. I don't think that she worked that well. She was still a fine character. She didn't take away from the movie per se, but she never really added anything to it, and her character was pretty tonally inconsistent because you start off with her being this hot shot. She thinks that she's really cool, and then towards the middle of the movie she just cries and cries and cries, and it's completely warranted for why she is, but there was really no in between. It was all or nothing for her character, and she was just kind of inconsistent. uh, the villain in this movie, as most superhero movies, the villain wasn't great, but I do think that it worked pretty well in the end. I don't even remember her name, but her last name was Cord. She was she was related to Jenny, but she was all right. Like I said, she's just generic. Bad guy wants bad stuff, but what they did at the end, not to get into any spoilers, but what they did was really good, and I think that they served her character and the other character. I think that they served them both justice, and I think that they did a good job in wrapping up this story in just this one movie. And because this movie isn't worried about setting anything else up, it just exists as its own. And that's what really makes this movie just special, because it's a very conclosed, tight knit story. And it doesn't really have anything else that it's trying to build up to. So, like I said, if James Gunn wants to incorporate into his universe, that would be awesome, because I think that it would work perfectly. My biggest problem with this movie was the glimpses that it had at a sort of social commentary on it, especially in the beginning, about capitalism and making it out of poverty. They never really circle back around to it, because they have all these themes set up, and they have a lot of really good, strong emotional moments in this movie, but they never take that extra step and make it just really good. Because if it took those extra steps and it came back around and it circled and it nailed the point home of what it wanted to get to about Miguel, or about Jaime bringing his family out of poverty, then that would have been absolutely amazing. They just didn't close it off as much as I think that they could have. They didn't circle back around to some of the conversations that were had earlier in the movie, and that was probably my biggest gripe with it. But if it did have that aspect of the movie, probably could have been a 4.5 out of 5. So with all of that in mind, I'm gonna give Blue Beetle a solid 4 out of 5. It was just a fun movie. That's the most that I can say about it. If you're wanting to go see a movie this weekend, I definitely go see Blue Beetle if you have the time. Another good movie that I think that everybody should see is Talk to Me, because I had a really good time with it, and it's an A24 movie, so that supports independent filmmakers, which is always amazing. So with all that out of the way, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about Blue Beetle down in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next movie review.